Before we begin, just a gentle reminder. If this story brings you a smile or a sleepy sigh, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the work of sleepy storytellers like me. And who knows, it might help someone else fall asleep too. Chapter 1. Apple Dreams and Grimy Feet. Good evening. Tonight, you'll live a peaceful day as a retired baker in a forgotten village of medieval England. Your name is Osric, but no one has called you that since the summer solstice 5 years ago, when you accidentally mistook lime for flour and baked a batch of bread that left everyone's teeth in the village significantly whiter, but completely useless. Since then, you've led a quiet life, living in a slightly crooked wooden cottage surrounded by lavender you didn't plant, but which seemed to like you anyway. You wake up to the familiar sound of a chicken named Matilda jumping straight onto your windowsill. She doesn't lay eggs or cluck. She simply stares at you, silently judging your food choices. The morning air is fresh, damp, and faintly sweet. There's a distant smell of wood smoke and baked apples, a combination that, curiously, doesn't make you hungry, but rather gives you an odd urge to stretch until the end of eternity. So you do. Your bones crack with the precision of a polite thunderclap. Today is market day. You don't sell anything at the market, nor do you buy much or talk much. But you enjoy watching the stalls. The scent of hay, sweat, fried sweets, and frustrated bargaining hope somehow puts you at ease. There's a comforting calm in the chaos of others. Upon reaching the town square, you see the stall you're looking for. Lady Gilda's Apple Dreams. Gilda is not actually a lady. She's just insisted on the title ever since she was mistaken for a noble by a nearsighted knight who needed glasses but had sworn to fight any form of glass. Apple Dreams are small fried pastries, golden, coated in sugar, and made with apples that have definitely seen better days. And that's exactly what makes them perfect. They're not masterpieces of pastry. They're uneven, sometimes crispier, sometimes slightly raw in the center. But the aroma, oh the aroma. Cinnamon, oil, and nostalgia, all in one hot steam that fogs up even your soul. You buy two, one to eat immediately and one for later, which in market language means in 5 minutes. You sit on a half-rotten bench under the shade of a tree that looks just as tired as you. And there, with your mouth full of pastry, you start to wonder, why do they call it a dream anyway? Maybe because, like real dreams, it's sweet, a bit confusing, and disappears far too quickly. A little boy runs by, trips over your foot, and knocks the rest of your second pastry to the ground. He stops and looks at you as if he's just seen a dragon. And with your white beard and wild eyebrows, you sort of look like one, but you just smile and offer him the rest of the dream. He smiles back, one of those half-brushed baby-tooth smiles, and vanishes. You sigh. Not for the lost pastry, but because now you'll have to come up with a reason to sit there for the next 40 minutes without looking like a weird old man. Maybe you'll daydream. Maybe you'll imagine someone someday will write about fried pastries and sleepy peasants, and that somehow it will matter. The sun begins to lazily move across the sky, just like your thoughts. You think about making your own apple dream recipe at home, but then remember your kitchen was invaded by magical ants that only disappear when you recite psalms in Latin. And you never learned Latin because, in your words, it sounded too complicated for someone who once wrestled a cow on a boat. You get up slowly, brushing the crumbs off your robe. Matilda waits for you by the bridge, probably ready for another one of her silent judgments. You walk back home, slowly, feeling the soft breeze on your face and your stomach full of almost nothing but your heart. Ah, your heart is full. Today, you had an apple dream, and now you will sleep, because that is the best part of any fare. Chapter 2. The Philosophy of Curd Cheese. You wake up to a peculiar sound, a sound that seems like a bell, but might just be your stomach. At your age, it's hard to tell. You once mistook a cow's moo for a Sunday sermon, and in both cases, you were forgiven. Outside, the mist dances over the fields as if it woke up before everyone else just to show off. Dew covers the windows of your crooked little cottage, and the old kettle hisses softly on the stove, even without a flame. You don't remember putting it there, but you also don't remember where you left your shoes, so everything is in harmony. Today, you decide to visit the monastery. Not out of devotion, but because of the curd cheese. Yes, the famous curd cheese made by the monks of the Order of the Sacred Dairy. Legend has it that it was created by accident when an apprentice spilled fresh milk into a straw basket and forgot it in the sun for 3 days. When he returned, the basket was strangely alive and delicious. You put on your shoes, which were inside the oven for some reason you choose not to investigate, and head toward the monastery, accompanied only by the sound of your own footsteps and Matilda the chicken, who still follows you for reasons of her own. The path is quiet. The wind blows gently, as if not wanting to wake the trees. The stones crunch under your feet, and you notice some of them seem to form a pattern that vaguely resembles the face of a grumpy bishop. Curious, but irrelevant. Upon arriving at the monastery, the aroma is unmistakable. Milk, fermentation, and a generous hint of century-old patience. You're greeted by Brother Berthold, a round man with a serene expression and a permanently surprised look. He doesn't say much. He just points to the bench by the well, where visitors wait for their portion of curd. You sit. The bench is cold, but the sky is warm, and that makes up for it. The curd arrives in a clay bowl, still warm, with tiny air bubbles that pop gently, like the size of an indecisive cheese. You dip your spoon slowly, as if you're having a quiet conversation with it before the first bite. The texture is complicated. Half soft, half firm, half, what exactly am I eating? The flavor, on the other hand, is comforting. A bit salty, a bit tangy, but above all, honest. The curd doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. It knows it's a pause in your day, a warm little kindness in an undecided morning. Beside you, a young novice watches your face as you chew. He asks, "Is it good?" You think for a moment and reply, "It's exactly what it needed to be." The novice smiles, perhaps because he understands the answer, perhaps because he doesn't know what else to say. Later, as you walk back home with a small bundle of extra curd for later, which will probably become right now, you reflect on the monk's wisdom. They don't rush, don't shout, don't argue, and yet they make a cheese that is practically a parable. Back at your home, you sit beneath a crooked tree, or perhaps just a shy one, watching the leaves lazily sway in the breeze. Matilda settles beside you in absolute silence, which in her case still feels deeply judgmental. You close your eyes. The day was light, the cheese was strange, and your heart is almost curdled with peace. Good night, Osric. Chapter 3. The Turnip Pie and the Mystery of Sad Desserts. The day begins with the gentle sound of light rain tapping on the roof. It's not hurried rain, the kind that seems to have somewhere to be. It's more like a whisper from the sky, a reminder that the world is alive but sleepy. You're wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of fireplace smoke, old bread, and happy memories. Your knees crack with elegance as you stand, not from pain, just your body saying, "We're in this together, but take it slow." Today, you have an important mission: to face the turnip pie at the fair. Turnip pie, for those unfamiliar, is a medieval experiment between the world of vegetables and the world of sweets, an ambiguous treaty forged with honey, good intentions, and a touch of naivety. It's the dessert nobody asked for, yet it keeps showing up at the stalls year after year, like a distant uncle at every family gathering. You dress slowly, put on your crooked felt hat. The one you swear has mystical powers because every time you wear it, you manage to avoid long conversations with neighbors and head toward the village. The rain follows your steps like a silent friend. You like that. The air is damp and fresh, scented with earth, wet wood, and moderately cautious culinary expectations. At the fair, Aunt Ilda's stall shines beneath a patched canopy. There she is, offering her famous sweet turnip pie with inspiration. The word inspiration is written in crooked letters on a sign that survived more storms than you have. You ask for a slice. Aunt Ilda hands it to you with a smile that blends pride with a hint of pity. It's hard to tell whether she believes in the pie or has simply accepted that it is what it is. You take a bite. It's interesting. The texture is mushy, almost meditative. The flavor? A curious mix of sweetened earth and the memory of a forgotten garden. The honey tries to save the day, but it's like a troubadour trying to cheer up a funeral. You chew slowly, like someone reading a sad poem in a quiet voice. Next to you, an old woman with a three-legged dog comments that the pie is good for the soul. You don't disagree. It really does seem to have introspective properties. You feel more thoughtful, almost philosophical. The dog stares at you like it knows too much. Back at your favorite bench, the one that creaks reliably, you watch life go by. Children run around with pieces of bread. Men argue over hay prices with the intensity of a philosophical debate, and someone tries to sell onions as lucky charms. You tuck the rest of the pie into your coat's inner pocket, not because you plan to eat it later, but because it feels like something that should be kept, like a lesson. A reminder that not every dessert needs to be perfect. Some just need to exist. You walk back home feeling the comforting weight of the pie in your pocket like a quiet companion. Matilda is there, waiting for you. Today, she's wearing a new feather behind her ear. You don't ask, she doesn't explain. You sit down, take off your boots, warm your hands by the fire, and close your eyes. The turnip pie wasn't good, but strangely enough, you feel light. Maybe that's what it does. Good night, Osric. Chapter 4. The meat pie that survived a battle. The sound that wakes you this time is solid. Not a bell, not a chicken, nor the polite creak of your left knee. It's a dense sound, hollow, as if someone had dropped a 2-day-old loaf of bread onto an oak table. You recognize that sound. It's the sound of a meat pie. You rise slowly, like an old ship leaving the harbor. Your muscles complain politely, and you respond with a yawn that would make any cat feel small. Outside, the sky is overcast, but with that pale brightness that seems to come from within the clouds. It's artisan gathering day, which means free food. And free food in the medieval world usually means meat pie, or something that resembles it. You put on your grey tunic, your travel cloak that smells of respectable mildew, and your leather satchel, which was once a better bag, but still holds things with dignity. Matilda the chicken accompanies you to the door and decides not to come. She senses something. In the town square, the artisans are passionately debating the proper size of a wooden spoon. You gently step away from the commotion and head straight to the stall of Sir Alwyn, the blacksmith poet. He also makes meat pies, and his definition of meat is flexible enough to include mushrooms, eggs, roots, and, in one isolated case, a wool sock. You buy one. It is robust, a firm crust, slightly burnt on the edges, and a smell that mixes onion, smoke, and adventure. You take a bite, crust. You try again, this time with more determination, finally filling. You can't quite tell what it is, but it tastes like food that tried to be practical and ended up poetic. There's texture, moisture, and a faint touch of rosemary. Or maybe road dust. Hard to tell. Both are plausible ingredients. You chew slowly, watching the fair's movement. Two old women argue about which type of wool repels evil spirits best. A horse ties its own halter out of sheer boredom. And to your left, a bard sings off-key on purpose just to scare off superstitious crows. You feel like you're in the right place. As you finish your pie, which at some point turns more into a jaw exercise than a meal, you remember the story Sir Alwyn always tells. Once, one of his pies fell to the ground during a siege. It was kicked by a knight, used as a shield by a squirrel, and after 3 days exposed to the elements, was still edible. More or less. You believe him. Back at your crooked, reliable bench, you watch the sky open a little. A ray of sun slips through the clouds, timid like a child walking into the wrong party. You burp discreetly, a deep sound echoing with undefined meat and mutual respect. The pie wasn't good, but it was necessary. And now, with a full stomach and a soul comforted by fat of mysterious origin, you feel your eyelids grow heavy. Matilda reappears out of nowhere. She carries a tiny piece of crust in her beak and looks at you as if to say, "You're brave." You thank her with a sleepy nod. The world grows quiet, and you, with the vague taste of something that tried really hard to be food, fall into a deep sleep. Good night, Osric. Chapter 5. Fennel Seeds and Crunchy Smiles. You wake up with the strange feeling that you're being watched. You open your eyes slowly, and there she is, Matilda, sitting on the windowsill, perched in complete silence, staring at you with the intensity of someone who suspects you've eaten something without sharing. You yawn, raise an eyebrow, and sigh. Matilda remains still, like a statue of judgment in bird form. Today is the day of your visit to the manor of the minor nobles, a family of little importance, modest wealth, and excessive pomp. They're famous for a peculiar custom, offering sugar-coated fennel seeds to everyone who visits the estate. Yes, those tiny, crunchy candies that, in large amounts, make your mouth feel like a minty battlefield at war with your gums. You don't quite know why you're going there. Maybe for the experience. Maybe because someone said mulled wine would be served. Or maybe because today, more than ever, you feel like hearing someone use the word heraldry 5 times in the same sentence. You get ready with some care, wiping your boots with a damp cloth. They're still wet from your last walk, because the universe has a very specific sense of humor, and head down the winding road that leads to the manor. The path is pleasant, full of small wildflowers and trees with twisted branches that seem to whisper to one another. The sun is mild, the breeze smells of grass and spices, and your steps carry the calm rhythm of someone walking not out of obligation, but out of curiosity. The best kind of walk. Upon arriving, you're greeted by Sir Ludolf, a noble of average height and extraordinary enthusiasm. He wears a vest embroidered with acanthus leaves and a belt that looks like it was made from an old book. "Welcome to the manor of the minor nobles," he says, with the voice of someone who's rehearsed that line dozens of times. He leads you to the main hall, where a small tray rests atop a linen cloth that was once white, but now displays shades of tea, time, and perhaps frustration. On the tray, there they are, the sugar-coated fennel seeds, tiny, shiny, smelling faintly of anise and burnt sugar. You take a pinch and place them in your mouth. Crunch. It's a very specific sound, a graceful crackle, a sweet burst. The firm texture slowly melts, releasing that perfumed and slightly eccentric flavor that seems to say, yes, this was once a plant, but now it's a secret. As you chew, you notice how the atmosphere shifts. People speak more softly, walk more slowly. A child tries to imitate a horse using an armchair and an inkwell. A grumpy-looking cat observes everything from atop a piece of furniture no one else uses. And you just chew. Sir Ludolf offers you mulled wine with spices. You accept. The wine is sweet, thick, and a little theatrical. It matches the seeds, and together they create the sensation of living through a ceremony, even though nothing particularly important is happening. You lose yourself in the flavor and the silence. The seeds crackle in your mouth like tiny, crunchy blessings, and for a moment you feel that life is just a series of forgotten little rituals. Like this one. Like chewing a sweet seed while a cat judges you from atop a cupboard. After a while you take your leave. Sir Ludolf hands you a small pouch of seeds, for the teeth and for the sins, as he puts it. You thank him with a nod that says more than any words could. On the way back, Matilda meets you at the gate. You offer her a seed, and she declines with a slow, silent blink. You enter, take off your boots, sit in your armchair, and reach for the pouch. One by one, you let the seeds melt in your mouth, slowly, unhurried, thinking of everything and nothing. And then you fall asleep, with the taste of the past on your teeth and the present in your hands. Good night, Osric. Chapter 6. The Honey Cake and Forgotten Birthdays. Today, you wake up to the distant sound of a festive bell. Not the one that announces Mass, but the other one, the cheerier, more off-key one, the one that says someone, somewhere, decided to celebrate something without any real reason. You stretch carefully, so as not to startle the invisible cat that sometimes sleeps at your feet. He's probably not there, you think, but it's best to keep up appearances. Outside, the sun hesitates between shining and hiding. The clouds look like underbaked pieces of bread floating across an indecisive sky. There's the smell of yeast in the air. And honey? Ah. Today is the village honey cake day. The tradition is simple. Once a month, someone bakes a cake with a lot of honey. No eggs, no milk, no reliable leavening. Just honey, flour, and sheer willpower. Sometimes cinnamon, if the village economy has been generous. You remember this tradition with a kind warmth, not because the cakes are good, they rarely are, but because it's the kind of thing that makes time feel kind. You put on your semi-formal cloak, the one for events with some form of frosting, slip on your boots that are still damp, because medieval boots never fully dry, and head toward the square. At the stall, decorated with fabric ribbons and two brave flowers, there she is, Edeline, the baker of honey cakes. Her cakes are famous for two reasons. First, because they're heavy enough to be used as anchors. Second, because despite that, there's something about them that warms the heart. You take a slice. It comes wrapped in a napkin that's seen better days. The cake is dense, sticky. It releases a scent of honey and hope. You take a bite. It sticks to the roof of your mouth. You chew slowly, with movements reminiscent of an ancestral ritual. The taste is sweet, very sweet, but the kind of sweet that isn't trying to impress you. It just is. It's there, like a sugary hug from a grandmother you never had, but somehow remember. Beside you, a wrinkled old man, even older than you, which is quite a feat, comments that the cake is better than last year's, and that, possibly today, is his birthday. He's not sure. You congratulate him anyway. Other people gather, eating their slices in a shared silence. A child asks if the cake could be used to build a cabin. No one laughs, but everyone understands the question. You finish your slice. Your teeth feel as if they've been coated with sweetness and responsibility. You tuck the napkin into your pocket, not for hygiene, but out of habit. Back home, Matilda watches you with narrowed eyes. You offer her a bit of the cake's edge. She sniffs it and turns her head away, with grace. You sit by the fireplace, now lit, with small, humble flames, like a chorus of fireflies in a homeowners association meeting. The warmth is comforting. Your stomach is heavy. Your heart is light. You think that maybe all the cakes in the world are trying to be this one, imperfect, honest, sticky, and somehow good. You close your eyes. The smell of honey still lingers in the air, and you sleep, unhurried, unafraid, with the sweet taste of a forgotten birthday in your mouth. Good night, Osric. Chapter 7. Fish Skin and the Soldier Who Couldn't Cook. Morning arrives sluggishly, as if time had tripped getting out of bed. You smell smoke and salt before even opening your eyes, and that can only mean one thing. Today is fish day, but not just any fish. Today is skin day. You sit up slowly, your bones sounding like a timid choir of bronze bells. The window is open, and the wind brings with it a peculiar aroma, something between frying and sea breeze. A crunchy smell, if that makes any sense, and somehow it does. Outside, the village is in a commemorative mood, an annual celebration in honor of Sir Thaddeus, the only soldier in local history to survive 3 battles, 2 shipwrecks, and a dinner with his mother-in-law, all while eating nothing but fried fish skin. Legend says that Sir Thaddeus, a man of questionable bravery but legendary appetite, refused noble cuts of meat. He claimed the skin was where the courage of the fish lived. And since no one wanted to argue with someone who wore a cod's head as a helmet, it became tradition. Today, you've decided to head to the old port, where the tradition takes place. Frying reused fish skins in enormous pans, using boiling oil, sea salt, and a pinch of boldness. The road is dotted with suspicious gulls and sleepy townsfolk. The sun tries to peek through the clouds, but seems to give up when it sees the size of the line at the main stall. You wait patiently. After all, there's no rush when it comes to eating skin. When your turn arrives, a burly fisherman hands you a cone of thick paper filled with golden, crispy shards. They glisten under the shy sun, with little bubbles that promise crunchiness and half-true stories. You take a bite. The sound is perfect, a crunch that echoes through the soul. The texture is almost magical, crispy on the outside, still a bit moist on the inside, tasting of sea and victory. It's strange. It's salty. It's surprisingly good. You sit on an overturned barrel, watching the waves gently hit the rocks, chewing slowly. Next to you, a young man tries to balance a cone of skins while holding a still living fish. The fish isn't cooperating. You watch silently, as if attending an absurd play, then return to your snack. A group of children plays war with dried fish spines. A dog steals a cone and vanishes into the mist. An old man plays a flute made of salmon bone. Everything seems to work in a mysterious but harmonious way. You finish your portion and feel a strange satisfaction, like you've eaten something forbidden and ancestral. It's not festive food, nor dessert. It's somewhere between a survivor's snack and an offering to the sea. You tuck a piece into your pocket, maybe for Matilda, maybe as a reminder. Back home, the smell of frying still clings to your cloak. Matilda sniffs the piece and decides that today you deserve respect. You lean back in your chair. Your stomach hums softly. The wind slips in through the window, carrying stories of ships, of battles won with little ammunition and plenty of hot oil. You close your eyes. Today, you ate the courage of the fish. Good night, Osric. Chapter 8. Beer Bread and the Art of Doing Nothing. Today the world feels still. The breeze doesn't blow, the leaves don't sway, even the insects seem to be on break. You wake up with the strange sensation that time is taking a nap, and you've decided to join it. Your bed feels especially soft, maybe because you made it yesterday for the first time in 2 months, or maybe because your tired body has finally decided it will no longer argue with the mattress. Outside, the sky is light grey, the kind that looks like cotton washed too many times. You get up, put the kettle on the fire, not for tea but for company, and walk to the door. On the porch, a bowl with stale bread waits for a purpose. You stare at the bread, it stares back, and then you remember. Old Albert, the tavern keeper, used to say that stale bread soaked in beer is like life, a bit soggy, slightly bitter, but still nourishing if you don't think too hard about it. Today, you decide to test that philosophy. You put on your tunic, which smells of barley and thyme, slip on your boots, still damp because the universe remains consistent, and walk slowly to the tavern. Along the way, everything seems to slow down. A dog sleeps in the middle of the road. A child tries to fly a feather, unsuccessfully. Even Matilda decides not to follow you. She stays at the window, watching as if to say, "This one's on you." the tavern is nearly empty. Just old Albert, polishing the same glass for the 8th time since sunrise. "Is it a bread day?" you ask. Albert smiles without his front teeth and replies, "Today is a do-nothing day. The bread is just an excuse." He serves a wooden bowl. At the bottom, 2 pieces of hard bread float slowly in a pool of warm, dark beer. There's something almost ritualistic about it. A respectful silence settles. You take the spoon. The bread is partly dissolved, but still holds a stubborn dignity. You lift it to your mouth. It's mushy, slightly sour. The beer has given the bread a taste of old barley and liquid nostalgia. But it's not bad. It's just what it is. As you eat, you notice the details of the tavern, the sound of crackling firewood, the glow of filtered light through the dusty window, the occasional sigh from someone remembering something long forgotten. The bread finishes quickly, but leaves a warm feeling in your chest. Or maybe that's just the beer. Hard to tell. You thank him, leave a few coins that probably aren't worth anything anymore, and head out. The world is still slow outside, but now you're part of that rhythm. You return home as if floating, not from lightness, but from resignation. On the porch, Matilda sleeps with her head under her wing. You join her. Not literally, of course. You lean back, take a deep breath, and feel that today was one of those days where nothing happened, and yet everything is in its place. You close your eyes with the taste of bread and beer lingering in your memory and sleep, because sometimes that's all there is to do. Good night, Osric. Chapter 9. Wine-soaked toasts and the secret of accidental elegance. Today you wake up to a different sound, a delicate clinking, almost ceremonial. When you open your eyes, you realize it's just a spoon falling into an empty goblet. Your own goblet, which has been on the floor since the last noble dinner you weren't invited to, but attended anyway, claiming to be the new harpist. It worked for almost 20 minutes. Today is the day of the noble meal, or, as the villagers call it, the wine toast event. It's a refined tradition, or an attempt at one, where hardened toast is dipped into warm, spiced wine. It's a dessert, but also a symbolic act that even the hard and forgotten can soften and become sweet, if soaked in enough alcohol. You dress in your most formal attire, which is exactly the same as your informal one, but with a belt that holds nothing. Matilda watches you from the window, beak furrowed. She doesn't trust food soaked in liquids, or you sometimes. You head to the local Duke's Manor, a crooked stone house with foggy windows, where elegance is measured by the number of decorative spoons and the presence of someone named Claudio. At the entrance, you're announced as Sir Osric of Bakershire, and no one questions it. Everyone is too busy pretending to understand art. The main hall is decorated with tapestries depicting ambiguously biblical scenes and crooked candelabras that insist on leaning eastward. At the center of the long oak table sits the grand pot of mulled wine. Beside it, the toasts, firm, austere, almost hostile. You approach reverently. You dip a toast. The wine releases a scent of clove, cinnamon, and pretension. The toast, once rigid as a monastery's moral code, slowly begins to give. You bring it to your mouth. It melts, almost. Still demands some effort. It's a dessert you chew with respect. The taste is unexpected. The wine coats the bread in sweet warmth with a hint of bitterness. The spices awaken memories of a winter when you almost married a firewood vendor. Or maybe it was a pile of firewood. The memory is hazy, but the feeling is warm. Beside you, a gentleman raises his glass and remarks, "A subtle dessert that stirs the senses without violence." You nod elegantly while discreetly trying to dislodge a piece of toast stuck between 2 teeth. Later, after 3 toasts, a conversation about peacock feathers, and a dance attempt involving 3 falls and a wobbly couch, you decide you've had enough sophistication for 1 month. You return home with a little wine in a small bottle and a partially soaked toast in your cloak's inner pocket, your noble souvenir. In your usual armchair, you watch the sky darken. Matilda approaches. You offer her a piece of toast. She declines, but this time with less disdain. Maybe elegance is contagious. You smile. The wine still warms your chest. The spices whisper gently in your throat, and the world feels softer, like a piece of toast that spent too long in wine, and now just wants to sleep. You follow. Good night, Osric. Chapter 10. Dried Fruit and the Firmness of Luxury. The morning begins with a dry sound. Thwack. You're not sure if it was a branch, a nut, or your spine. You decide not to investigate. After all, the day has started firmly, and there's enough firmness in what lies ahead. Today is Dried Fruit Day. Not quite a celebration, but a quiet tradition, a ritual, an occasion where the villagers gather to slowly chew figs, dates, apricots, and other dehydrated fruits with names hard to pronounce and even harder to bite. You rise slowly, like bread trying to rise without yeast. The floor is cold under your feet. The air smells of old wood, washed linen, and a faint hint of fermented date, a sign that neighbor Uald started early. You put on your ceremonial chewing robe, slip into boots that are only damp today, progress, and walk to the central square. There, among shy stalls and familiar faces, are the trays of dried fruit, noble fruits, the sign says. You observe the scene with the reverence due something sweet, expensive, and uncooperative with your jaw. You take a date. It weighs more than it should. Dense, wrinkled, with the look of something that's been through a lot. You bite, nothing happens. You try again. A slight crunch. Inside, a deep, rich sweetness, the taste of concentrated sun and unfulfilled promises. You chew slowly, sensing each fiber fight to become fresh again. Next to you, a lady with a basket of dried apricots comments that nobles often keep these fruits as currency or status symbols. That a good date might be more respected than an obedient child. You don't doubt it. You try a dried fig. It has seeds, many. You're unsure whether you're eating a fruit or an entire plantation, but the flavor is good, sweet, earthy, almost conspiratorial. The kind of sweetness that gives you a sideways glance and says, "You'll be chewing me for a while, but you'll enjoy it." A troubadour passes by, strumming a badly tuned lute. A child tries to stuff 3 prunes into their mouth at once. A dog, perhaps the same one from the fish skin event, sleeps with its snout resting on a piece of fig no one dared to take away. You finish your portion with pride. Your jaw, exhausted, begs for rest. Your stomach is grateful, and your soul feels a bit richer. You bring home a few dried fruits wrapped in a cloth tied with string. Matilda sniffs the package. You offer her a prune. She accepts, then spits it out, then glares at you with resentment. The circle of life. You sit beneath the neighbor's fig tree, an irony not lost on you, and watch the afternoon sky fade into ochre tones. The world is slow. The clouds drift like dried fruit steeping in herbal tea. You chew one more fig, just to chew, just to exist. And then you sleep, with your mouth slightly stuck together, but with your heart soft. Good night, Osric. Chapter 11. Blood sausage balls and the comfort of caloric courage. You wake with a strange feeling in your stomach. Not exactly hunger, more like a longing for something substantial, something dense, something that, when chewed, makes your body reflect on dietary and existential decisions. Something like blood sausage balls. Yes, today is the day. You sit up in bed, your feet meeting the cold floor with a soft ouch. The sky is grey and heavy, like a wet cloth draped over the village. The kind of day that calls for food that sticks to the soul, and maybe to the arteries as well. You put on your dark brown tunic, which goes well with practically anything involving fat, blood, and oats. The boots, still damp, but now with a smoky scent. You don't ask why. The village square is busier than usual. That's because blood sausage balls, despite the uninviting name, are a popular attraction, especially among labourers, tired monks and peasants who've long abandoned their sensory filters. At the main stall, a pot bubbles like the cauldron of a fat, well-meaning witch. Inside it, the balls fry slowly, sizzling gently, releasing that unmistakable aroma of blood, oats, lard and possibility. You receive 3, on a wooden plate darkened by time and use. The balls are golden on the outside, nearly black in the cracks. You take a bite. The taste is undeniably bold. The crust is crisp. The inside is soft, moist, and strangely comforting. It's as if the ball is saying, "I know what I am, and so do you. Now let's move on." Beside you, a blacksmith chews with tears in his eyes. Not from emotion, but because he overdid the spicy mustard. A woman carries 6 wrapped in cloth and says they're for her husband, though everyone knows she's been a widow for 2 years. You finish the second ball. You feel the weight settle gently on your shoulders, but in a comforting way, like you've eaten a salty pillow. The third you save for later. Later always arrives. As you walk back home, the sky threatens rain, then gives up. Perhaps even it feels tired after the sausage balls. Matilda waits for you at the doorstep. You show her the remaining ball. She stares at you, weighing curiosity against survival instinct. In the end, she chooses to ignore and retreats. You place the ball on the highest shelf, where only sacred snacks rest. The smell lingers in the house, hovering like an invisible blanket woven from noble grease. You settle into your chair, close your eyes, and listen to the sound of silence being slowly chewed. Today, you faced the blood sausage, and you won. Good night, Osric. Chapter 12. Medieval Pancakes and the Miracle of Pork Fat. You wake up to a growl that isn't yours. It's your belly. It's restless, silently protesting. Maybe because of yesterday, maybe because of tomorrow, but most likely because of today. Because today is Pancake Day. Not fluffy, light, fragrant pancakes. No, medieval pancakes. Thin, rustic, made with coarse flour, a splash of pork fat, and a kind of culinary confidence that only appears when you have very few ingredients and absolutely no hesitation. You get up with effort, not from tiredness, but because you're trying to remember where you left the cast iron skillet, the old one, the one that always sticks but tastes like burnt memories. After rummaging through cloths, pots, and a bucket that inexplicably contained a pair of socks, you find it. On the wall, where it always is, you sigh. The day is already testing you. You stoke the fire, mix the flour with some warm water and a pinch of salt scraped from the edge of the barrel. No eggs, no milk, just the essentials, and maybe a dash of faith. The pork fat sizzles in the pan, a comforting sound, like the discreet applause of an invisible audience. You pour the batter and watch. The pancake spreads, takes shape, and begins to crackle at the edges as if telling secret jokes. You wait. Flip. Wait a bit more. Remove. You place it on a chipped plate shaped like a shield. The first bite is crispy, then soft, then slightly resistant, as if the pancake wants to make sure you truly want it. The flavor is simple, simple like breathing, simple like walking barefoot on earth after the rain. You eat 1, 2. By the third, you're mentally conversing with the pancake. You thank it for existing, for not being pretentious, for not trying to impress with sweetness or fluff. It simply is. Matilda appears in the kitchen as always. You tear off a small, almost burnt piece and offer it. She sniffs, bites, chews, then turns her back with a sigh you choose to interpret as approval. Outside, the sound of the world is muffled by a cloud of floating grease that wraps your home like a fatty hug. You make more pancakes, not because you're hungry, but because you're alive. And because there are days when you don't need big events nor bold flavors, just a piece of hot batter, fried in honest fat, eaten with your hands, in silence. You lean back in your chair. The sunlight passes through the window, gilding the crumbs on the plate. Your stomach is calm, your chest is full, and your eyes are heavy. You close your eyes and sleep with the taste of simplicity on your tongue. Good night, Osric. Chapter 13. Sweet Wafers and the Snap of Culinary Faith. Today, you wake up earlier than you'd like. Not because you have commitments, no one's really expected anything from you in years, but because the church bell rang 12 times. It was supposed to be 6. You decide it's not worth arguing with the bell. The morning air is cold and dry, the kind that makes fingers crack and words come out slower. But today, there's a scent in the air that gets you up with less reluctance. Wafer. Or rather, sweet wafers. Those ultra-thin, pressed sheets of dough, sold at fairs and religious festivals, marked with images of saints, stars, or, depending on the baker's skill, something resembling an anxious cat. You put on your light cloak, slip into your boots, now only slightly damp at a personal record, and head out. Matilda doesn't follow. She's wary of anything too thin or too holy. The fair is held at the entrance to St. Apathy Convent, an old structure of tired stones and pretentious pigeons. The sisters of the convent, wafer specialists for 3 generations, run the event with the calm efficiency of those who've long stopped trying to impress. At the central stall rest hundreds of sweet wafers, thin as forgotten bridal veils, some intricately decorated, others a bit melted on the edges, victims of hot irons and liturgical distraction. You pick one. It's light, almost symbolic, the kind of food that disappears between your fingers if you wait too long. You take a bite. Krrk! The sound is unmistakable. A dry, clean snap, like a decision made without regret. The texture is delicate. The flavor? Almost none. A distant memory of wheat and prayer, and yet there's comfort there. A comfort that's hard to explain. Like chewing wind with purpose. You take another. It has a drawing of an angel holding a fish, perhaps symbolic. Perhaps a printing error. You sit on a stone bench, watching the villagers eat slowly, as if afraid the wafer will vanish before they find meaning in it. A child tries to stack 5 of them, like coins. A priest looks on with a neutral expression, perhaps proud, perhaps just bored. You continue eating one after another, each bite lighter than the last. It's as if the wafers aren't feeding the body, but feeding time. Each one granting a few more minutes of pause, silence, presence. One of the nuns offers you a packet with special designs, little lambs, chalices, and, curiously, a duck. You accept. Back home, you store them in the wooden box where you keep things you're not sure are memories or just forgotten objects, with affection. Matilda watches you from atop the cupboard. You offer her a wafer. She pecks at it, no grimace. You sit in your usual chair, the sun crossing the window with gentleness. On your tongue, a faint residue of sweet nothing. In your heart, a crispy silence. You close your eyes and sleep like someone just absolved by a thin cookie. Good night, Osric. Chapter 14. Candied fruits and the sweet that tried to be a jewel. Today you wake up with something rare, a feeling of importance. Not exactly pride, not quite purpose, but something in between, wrapped in sugar and tied with a gold ribbon. You rise with the solemnity of someone preparing for an event where the food is meant to be seen more than eaten. The day is bright, clean, almost polished. Even the birds seem to sing in rehearsed harmony. It's the festival of the sucket. Ah, the sucket, also known as fruits that decided to abandon their healthy nature and become sugary extravagance. You've attended the festival before, but always as an observer. This time, you were officially invited, which means a cupbearer's apprentice handed you a folded scroll and whispered, "Sir Osric, the sugared lord awaits you." You wore your finest tunic, the one that gleams when the sun hits it just right, wiped your boots with a damp cloth, now almost dry, but still carrying a stubborn whiff of blood sausage, and set off. The festival takes place in the noble gardens, among topiaries of questionable taste and tables draped in beige cloth with wavy edges. Everything seems carefully arranged to look effortless. And then you see it, an entire table covered in candied fruits. Translucent pears, cherries encased in crystallized sugar, glistening ginger slivers, slices of orange soaked in thick syrup, each fruit transformed into a relic. They don't look like food. They look like treasures found in the chest of a very hungry queen. You approach with reverence, pick up a date that shines like amber, bite slowly. The sugar crackles, the fruit yields, the flavor is intense. A sweetness that doesn't rush. It enters slowly and settles in, like a polite guest in a silent castle. There's warmth, there's freshness, and something utterly unnecessary. It's perfect. You taste a slice of apple in cinnamon syrup and feel as though you're being forgiven for things you never did. Then a piece of ginger that wakes you better than coffee. A sugared raisin that seems ready to share ancient secrets. Beside you, nobles and noble hopefuls speak of the fruits as if discussing rare tapestries. A lady says she only eats apricots, crystallized under a full moon. A young man claims his family makes tangerine candies with sugar from the Black Sea. Whatever that means, you simply chew in silence like someone who found a bit of eternity in a cube of sugared melon. As the table begins to empty, you discreetly tuck 3 fruits into a linen pouch. Not out of greed, but reverence. And because Matilda enjoys looking at shiny fruits, even if she doesn't eat them, on the way home, the world feels softer, the ground flatter, the trees more vain. Everything glows slightly, as if the sugar syrup had splashed onto the landscape. You arrive, remove your boots, which make a hollow, acceptable sound, and sit in your armchair. Matilda approaches, curious. You open the pouch. She looks, contemplates, then slowly walks away, as if respecting the moment. You pick the smallest fruit, a slice of pear, still moist, still glistening, and chew slowly. The sugar melts, the fruit remains, and then, effortlessly, you fall asleep. Because there are days when the world is made of stone and salt, and others when it's made of fruit and sugar. Good night, Osric. Chapter 15. Fried eel and the small crackle of rebellion. You wake up to a smell that shouldn't be in your house at 6 in the morning. Something between fish, hot oil, and a poorly thought-out decision. You sit up in bed with a soft humph. The air is thick, as if someone had fried a bold idea right next to your pillow, and you know exactly what it is. Today is Fried Eel Day. The festival is ancient, strange, and delightfully untimely, celebrated by nobles, monks, peasants, and even fasting soldiers under the excuse that eel technically is almost a vegetable if it's well fried. You dress slowly, avoiding garments with too much grease history. The boots are finally dry, it feels odd. Outside, the sky is too clear, the kind of day that looks at you and says, "Are you really going to eat fried eel at 8 in the morning?" You reply with silence and determined footsteps. The village square is packed. The smell of frying hangs in the air like a greasy veil. Giant cauldrons bubble, sizzling little aquatic protests as freshly caught eels dance in the hot oil. You recognize the cook, Uncle Dunstan, the only man in the village who fries eel with his bare hands and walks away unscathed. No one knows how. He simply smiles, fingers gleaming with oil and pride. You order one. It comes wrapped in a greasy cloth that, in another context, might be used to ward off evil spirits. Now it holds something that was definitely once alive. Long, twisted, golden. You bite the end. Crunch. The sound is glorious. The eel's skin crackles like dry leaves in a silent monastery. The inside is tender, almost buttery, with that peculiar flavor of a fish that wanted to be pork. There's salt, there's fat, there's bravery. You chew with half-closed eyes, feeling the sun warm your back and the oil warm your soul. Beside you, a child tries to convince her mother that eel tastes sweet if you eat it with your eyes closed. An old poet recites verses about crispy scales and summer loves. A dog waits patiently for a piece of tail. You watch it all slowly, chewing steadily. Each piece of the eel has its own personality. One is crispier, another tastes of sea, another seems to challenge your dental integrity, but all of them somehow embrace you. You finish, wipe your fingers on the least greasy corner of the cloth, almost impossible, and walk home with calm, steady, slightly slippery steps. Matilda waits for you on the doorstep. You show her a small piece of eel. She approaches, sniffs, bites, pauses, then keeps eating. It's the first time you share something without judgment, a rare moment, a small breaded miracle. You sit in your chair, the sun coming through the window and dancing across the shards of colored glass you once tried to turn into sacred art. The taste of eel still lingers in your mouth. And strangely, it doesn't bother you. You close your eyes. Today, you ate something that never should have been fried, and everything turned out fine. Good night, Osric. Chapter 16, Dreams of Mesopotamia and the Silence of the Tablets. Today, Osric, you wake up without haste, not because you slept better, but because waking quickly requires energy you've set aside for later. There's something in the air, in the way the light enters through the window, in the distant caw of a hesitant crow that says, "Today is a day for remembering." You stretch with the care of someone who has lived through many mornings and has decided that the next ones will be gentler. The kettle creaks. Matilda is curiously absent. Perhaps she sensed the tone of the day. Perhaps she dreamt too. You rise with a slight crackle in your knees, walk to your desk and find a dream written down. You scribbled it during the night, in your crooked, winding, almost symbolic handwriting. Something about rivers of mud, a man with golden eyes, and a fish reciting poems about harvests. Nothing unusual, but strange enough to merit a stronger coffee and a long reflection. You decide that today is a good day to visit Albrun the Scroll Keeper, the only man in the village who claims to have read all the tablets of Mesopotamia and, at the same time, knows how to ward off nightmares using garlic peels. The walk to Albrun's house is long, dusty, and full of wind that whispers words you forget before you can understand. You like that. It's like speaking with an old friend who speaks in riddles by habit. Albrun greets you in a robe that was once blue and now smells intensely of dry ink and burnt toast. He offers you a seat made of books and a tea that tastes like boiled wisdom. You mention the dream, the fish, the man with golden eyes. Albrun smiles with all the teeth he has and says, "Ah, that's very typical of Mesopotamia." You raise an eyebrow. He continues, "In ancient Sumer, dreams were messages from the gods, sometimes warnings, sometimes compliments, sometimes the gods just wanted to talk. They had an entire system of interpretation. They wrote dreams on clay tablets. They had specialized priests called Baru, people who read dreams the way others read the sky." You nod, take another sip of tea, and begin to imagine what it would be like to have a Baru by your bed, writing your dreams into clay as you snore, offering subtle interpretations about talking pigs and singing loaves of bread. "Your poet fish, for example," says Albrun, "probably represents fluid wisdom or nocturnal gas." Hard to say, you agree. Both seem plausible. Albrun then shows you a replica of a tablet with cuneiform inscriptions. You run your fingers over the surface. It's cold, rough, filled with tiny marks trying to say something for thousands of years, a book that never ends. "The Mesopotamians believed dreams came in two types," he says, spreading his arms like revealing a secret. "The good ones, sent by benevolent gods, and the others brought by demons, hungry spirits, or perhaps too many onions." You chuckle softly. The sound is hollow and comforting. Before you leave, Albrun gives you a small clay talisman. On it, a symbol which, according to him, means deep sleep and peaceful digestion. You place it in your pocket with reverence. On the way home, the world feels older, as if every stone holds memories, as if the wind whispers names in Sumerian, as if, for a moment, you too are a dreamer prophet, walking through harvests and imaginary rivers. Matilda is at the door. You show her the talisman. She closes her eyes for a moment, perhaps in respect, perhaps in sleep. You lie down. The pillow is cool, the room dark, and that night, the fish from your dream returns. But this time he sings softly in cuneiform. You don't understand, and somehow it all makes sense. Good night, Osric. Chapter 17. Egyptian Dreams and the Mysteries of Bastet. You wake up to a whisper, not a real sound, but that sensation that something spoke to you while you slept. A strange word, a name that doesn't exist, a symbol that vanishes the moment you try to recall it. You sit up, slowly. The sun slips through the window with millimetric precision, as if it rehearsed its entrance with priests. The air is dry, warm, faintly perfumed, and you feel like you are living an Egyptian dream. Today, Osric, you are visiting the tent of Nephirim, the foreigner. They say she came from far away, carrying jars of sand, papers with drawings of eyes, and cats that follow her even when no one sees. Some call her a healer, others an illusionist. But you know her as the woman who understands dreams, or at least knows how to invent meanings so beautiful that no one dares question them. You put on your lightest tunic, better suited for hot days and esoteric conversations. The boots you leave behind. Today is a day for walking barefoot like the ancient Egyptian priests, or the forgetful who lost their sandals. Nephirim's tent sits atop the hill, near the stones that always seem warm, even in the shade. She is there, as always, surrounded by colored fabrics, tiny bells, and a black cat with an expression far wiser than any human's. "Brought dreams?" she asks, before you even say a word. You nod silently. She gestures to a rug, and you sit. The tent smells of myrrh, dried leaf tea, and something subtly feline. The air hums gently, as if time itself were napping with one eye open. You tell her your dream, a boat sailing over sand, a mirror that doesn't reflect, a door that opens to silence. Nephirim smiles with her eyes closed. "That's common," she says, her voice almost melodic. "In Egypt, dreams were direct messages from the gods. Bastet, goddess of homes and cats, often spoke through soft images. Mirrors, sand, silence. That's her." You look at the cat. He doesn't deny it. She picks up a papyrus, draws slowly. Curved lines, an eye, a cat, a wave, a spiral. "This is you," she says. "It's your path, and your pillow. You don't understand, but you feel like you do." She tells you how ancient Egyptians interpreted dreams in temples, how priests slept with amulets under their heads, how a dream could cure an illness or reveal a destiny. Entire books were written about it, dictionaries of dream symbols, all handwritten, rolled with care, stored in scented wooden boxes. She gives you a small stone, smooth, clear, warm, says it's an offering to Bastet, that you should place it beside your pillow tonight and wait for the dream to return, but clearer. You thank her with a short bow. The sun begins to set, painting the tent in golden light. You leave in silence, the stone in your pocket, your heart light. Matilda is waiting at home. So is the black cat, now wearing a scarf. You decide not to ask. You lie down. The stone rests beside you, still warm, and as your eyes close, the boat returns. But this time it sails on a river of stars, and Bastet, seated at the prow, simply watches. Good night, Osric. Chapter 18. Ancient Greece and the Temple of Slow Dreams. You wake up with the impression that you've walked a long way. Your feet don't ache, your head isn't heavy, But there's that soft sense of tiredness, as if you had crossed silent hills, past marble columns, and heard oracles whispering in ancient tongues. You sit up in bed slowly and notice a laurel leaf on your pillow. You don't know where it came from, or if it's even real, but you decide to accept it. Today, Osric, is a day to dream like a Greek. You put on a white, simple tunic that feels like it was made to be stirred by thoughtful breezes. Your feet touch the ground with a small pop, not of pain, but of beginning. And you walk, lightly, to the clearing where old Thespis usually tells stories about Greece. Thespis, who swears he's a direct descendant of a priest of Asclepius, and once played the role of a rock in a theatre play that lasted 7 days. He awaits you seated on a flat stone, surrounded by crooked statues of gods that he himself sculpted out of stale bread and plaster. You approach. He doesn't open his eyes. "Did you sleep well?" he asks, as if testing your level of awareness. You nod, and he smiles, satisfied. "Then you're ready for the incubatio," he says in a deep, poetic voice. In ancient Greece, people slept in temples, in those of Asclepius, god of healing. They slept in silence after fasting, bathing, and offering gifts. And while the world slept, the dream came and healed. You sit beside him among statues and leaves. The sun filters through the branches as if through an ancient marble ceiling, and you feel like you're in another time. Thespis continues, "It was common to bring questions into dreams, to ask for guidance, to wait for revelations. Sometimes Asclepius would appear himself. Other times he'd send a snake, or a doctor with a generous mustache. The gods have their ways." He then hands you a small herb-filled pillow, scented with lavender, myrrh, and slumbering wine. "Sleep on this tonight and think of a question. Just one. You don't ask. You simply thank him." The walk home is slow, meditative. The world seems more symmetrical. The clouds form columns. Birds sing in hexameter. Matilda watches you with half-closed eyes. You show her the pillow. She sniffs it, turns away, sleeps. A gesture that in her language means solemn approval. You lie down, you rest your head on the Greek pillow, and think of a question, only one. When sleep arrives, it's not a leap. It's a marble staircase, each step lighter than the last. Somewhere down below, or maybe above, there's a temple, a shadow, and it smiles. Good night, Osric. Chapter 19. Prophetic Dreams and the Art of Waking with Conviction. Today, you awaken with your eyes already open. That doesn't mean you didn't sleep, quite the opposite, but it feels as if the dream simply kept going, and you just changed scenery. You yawn with solemnity. Your bones crack in unison like a divine call answered by a chorus of joints. Outside, the day is wrapped in a fine golden mist, as if the sky dreamt of itself and woke up shy. You feel that today, something is meant to be understood. You put on your thinking robe, the softest one, slightly stained with candle wax and grape juice. Matilda is perched at the door, staring into nothing with the expression of someone who's seen everything. You walk to the hall of the seer Enid, who, despite the pompous name, lives in a house that creaks, smells of old mint, and always teeters between enchanted and simply dusty. Enid doesn't talk much. She doesn't need to. She looks at you, serves a tea made of apple peels, mysterious leaves, and a pinch of sarcasm, and then asks, "Were you visited last night, you think?" A lion with a thunderous voice, a staircase that folds, a raven perched on an empty throne. Yes, someone definitely visited you. Enid closes her eyes. "Dreams like that aren't simple," she says, running her fingers along a crooked covered book. "In ancient times, they were prophecy. Joseph in Egypt, dreaming of lean cows. Nebuchadnezzar, terrified by falling statues. Alexander, sleeping before his conquests. Dreams that changed empires and empires. You chew a dull biscuit, Enid insists on calling the cookie of destiny. She continues, prophetic dreams don't come to explain. They come to announce. They are signs, riddles, maps, or just reflections of what you already know but haven't dared to think. You sip the tea. It tastes like a warm secret. Enid gives you a strip of red fabric. Place this under your pillow tonight. If the dream returns, it's an omen. If it doesn't, it was just last night's dinner. You walk home, the sky slowly brightening like a veil gently pulled back. The ribbon burns softly in your pocket, not with heat, but with meaning. Matilda watches you enter, with that look of hers that says she would have been a perfect divine messenger, if only she weren't so stubborn. You lie down. The ribbon rests beneath your head, and you wait. Sleep comes like a prophecy in reverse. It starts at the end, passes through the middle, and forgets to begin. You dream, but you don't remember. And you wake with the feeling that you already know what to do, even if you still don't know what it is. Good night, Osric. Chapter 20. Nightmares and the whispers of a haunted sheet. The night is cold, colder than it should be. You wake up curled up, knees to your chest, the blanket pulled up to your chin, like a scroll rolled tight, afraid of being read. The room is quiet, not the usual cozy kind of quiet from a lazy night, but a heavier kind, the kind that seems to listen to you breathe. You stay there, eyes half open, trying to remember, and then it comes, the dream, or rather the nightmare. There was an endless hallway, a clock ticking backward, and a giant Matilda whispering in Latin and throwing breadcrumbs at you. You woke up sweating, and with the strange certainty that someone, or something, was watching you. Even now, you rise slowly, feet on the cold floor. The sheet falls like a curtain, ending a shadowy act. Today, Osric, is a day to speak of dark dreams. You walk to the cabin of old Osric, a hermit who lives by the swamp and claims to be an expert in evil dreams, treacherous mirrors, and haunted household objects. The path there is cloaked in low mist and branches that lean with a bit too much interest. You pretend it's just your imagination. The air smells of moss, mold, and tea with a strong personality. Osric greets you with tired eyes and a blanket over his shoulders. "Bad dreams?" he asks, before you can say, "Good morning." You nod silently. "Bad dreams always come with a message," he says. In ancient times, every culture had its way of dealing with them. Some erased the dream by telling it to a stone. Others poured water over ashes. Some just went back to sleep, but on the other side of the bed. You listen, quiet. He lights incense that smells like charcoal, anise, and unspecified fear. The Babylonians believed nightmares came from restless spirits. The Egyptians thought they were signs of imbalance. The Greeks blamed bad food. But all had rituals, baths, talismans, prayers, or a good cup of wine before bed. He hands you a small, smooth stone with a crudely drawn, closed eye. Put it under your pillow. It dreams for you if you ask nicely. You thank him. On your way back, the village is veiled in fog. You feel like it's following you, or watching, or maybe just existing. Matilda is on the table. You tell her the dream. She blinks slowly, then turns her head. That's a good sign, or a warning, or just feline contempt. You lie down. The pillow is cold, the stone is there. You take a deep breath, close your eyes, and wait. This time the hallway doesn't return. The giant Matilda doesn't speak. Only darkness. Silent. Peaceful. Like a blanket that understood your fear and decided to hold you. Good night, Osric. Chapter 21. The political role of dreams and the pillow throne. You wake up with an idea, not a practical one, not urgent, certainly not useful, but one of those ideas that arrive with the rising sun and say, "Rise, Osric, today you matter." You stretch your arms with the solemnity of a monarch tangled in his own robe, and you yawn as if just declaring peace with the kingdom of dreams. Today your breakfast is old cheese on bread and imagined dignity. Because today, Osric, you're going to talk about power and how dreams, those nightly companions and clumsy prophets, once helped kings and emperors decide wars, coronations, and tax reforms that never quite worked out. You walk to the town square, where old chronicler Aldegar is reciting stories to no one. He speaks with passion to the pigeons and a deaf cat. But today he sees you coming and smiles, revealing half a dozen brave teeth. "Have you ever dreamed of being king, Osric?" he asks, handing you a strong, bitter tea that smells like aged leather. You shrug. You should. Many have. And some woke up crowning themselves. He opens a thick book full of markings and loose pages. He begins to narrate. Alexander the Great dreamed of an old man telling him where to found the city of Alexandria. He woke up and built it. Nebuchadnezzar saw statues in a dream and decided to build empires, and walls tall enough to keep bad interpretations out. Augustus, the Roman emperor, said that dreaming of Apollo was a sign of a long reign, and it was. Or maybe he just slept too close to temples. You listen closely. You chew a hard biscuit. You imagine announcing to the village that you, Osric, had a dream of a crown made of bread dough and a boar speaking Latin, and thus were now the rightful ruler. Sounds odd. But no stranger than some rulers history has known. Aldegar continues. Hatshepsut, queen of Egypt, claimed her father, the god Amun, appeared in a dream and said, "Take the throne, my daughter." So she did, because in ancient times, dreams justified everything. Love, war, taxes, marriages, changes in the royal menu. You sigh. Maybe it's time to start using your dreams with a bit more purpose. The best part, says Aldegar, is that every dream, even the most absurd, can be turned into a symbol, a sign, an argument. All you need is to dream with conviction. You walk home slowly, thinking of how many kings slept on hard mattresses and how many peasants had imperial dreams under torn blankets. Matilda is sitting on a cushion like a sphinx. You look at her and whisper, "I dreamed I was crowned." She blinks. Maybe she was the one who crowned you. You lie down, fluff the pillow as if it were a throne. You close your eyes with the poise of someone about to make a diplomatic decision. And in the dream that follows, you sign decrees with ostrich feathers and declare that all citizens shall sleep in on Mondays. You are a just king and a sleepy one. Good night, Osric. Chapter 22. The Legacy of Dreams and the Silence that Remained. Today you wake slowly, not from exhaustion, but out of reverence, as if the very act of waking were a ritual. As if, by opening your eyes, you were interrupting something sacred, a final scene, a last verse, a last whisper of a dream that was just about to tell you the ending. You remain lying down for a while. You watch the ceiling, listen to the sound of the wind slipping through the window cracks, and you realize you're still halfway there, in the place of dreams. The world is calm this morning. The whole village seems to be sleeping a bit longer. Even Matilda hasn't appeared yet. And that says a lot. You rise with the slowness of someone with no hurry and put on the light grey tunic, the one that almost has no scent, a neutral tunic for contemplative days. Today, Osric, is a day to think about what dreams left behind. You walk to the house of Master Etelvino, the retired librarian. Nobody visits Etelvino much because he speaks too slowly and answers questions no one asked. But you know that sometimes he holds answers that only show themselves when the world is quiet enough. Etelvino awaits you in a low chair, surrounded by piles of books, herbs drying from the ceiling, and a clock that ticks backwards because, according to him, dreams do that too. So, he says without looking up. You've come to talk about the after. You don't ask, after what? You just sit. He begins. Dreams never stopped. Even when gods changed names, even when kings stopped listening, dreams kept going. In the Middle Ages, they became omens again. Demons, revelations, divine messages. Priests interpreted, peasants prayed. And when all else failed, they burned rue in silence. You watch the smoke rising from the brazier in spirals. They looked like letters or maps. Then came the philosophers, the naturalists. Freud with his cigars and mazes of desire. Jung with his shadows and archetypes. Dreams earned couches, they earned theories, but they never lost their mystery. Etelvino picks up a small notebook. He opens it to the last page. He shows it to you, hand-drawn images. A fish, a boat, a cat, a ladder, a flower. Dreams I had, he says, that no one understood. But I wrote them anyway. Because dreams aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to continue. You remain silent, just breathing. Outside, the day begins to move, slowly, as if time itself had overslept. You say goodbye with a soft nod. Etelvino returns to his writing, as if he'd never stopped. On the way back, you feel the wind a little heavier, as if something were being swept away or swept in. The world feels full, not with things, but with memories. You arrive home. Matilda is there, sleeping, dreaming perhaps. You lie down, look at the ceiling, and smile. The dreams never stopped, and you, a baker, a peasant, an almost king and nearly prophet, have been home to many of them. You close your eyes, the body surrenders, the mind floats, and silence wraps around you like a cloak made of every night. Good night, Osric. The end. If you enjoyed this journey through medieval dumplings, prophetic pillows, and judgmental hens, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. May your dreams be gentle and your pancakes crispy.